Your voice and manner. The most important thing to remember when you are appearing on either radio or television is that you are really a guest in the home of the listener or viewer. Your manners, therefore, should be the same as if you were in their homes in person. You speak in a well-modulated voice, remembering that it is just as if you were in the same room with your audience. Remember, too, that a pocket full of jingling coins and a rattle of notes will sound far louder through the microphone than they ever would across a room. And check before the program begins to make certain you have eliminated all distracting and unnecessary noisemakers. Once on the air, try not to show off, but rather act naturally. If other people on the program become noisy or the discussion becomes heated, don't compete. Wait until the moderator calms them down or changes the subject, whereby you retain your dignity. If you are appearing on behalf of a charitable cause or on an intellectual program, be sure that the interviewer knows exactly what your subject is. Otherwise, you may have difficulty in bringing out the points you wish to stress. If you are a participant in a discussion group or on a panel show, listen to the views of the other members and don't concentrate on pushing only your own opinions. Last but not least, don't talk down or patronize your audience. You are a guest in the homes of people from every walk of life, and you cannot possibly know more than each and every one of them. In other words, don't underestimate the intelligence of your listeners. On the other hand, because they have chosen to listen to you, don't overestimate their knowledge. That's Emily Post's etiquette.
Welcome to Cool and Unusual Punishment. It is 7:53 p.m. on October 9th. My name is Tyler Haas, and joining me, my lovely fiance, Jodie. How are you?
Good.
Shalom.
Oh, we're going to do this stuff already?
I've been waiting all day to say that to you. That's how funny I thought it was.
Have you been waiting, to wonder when you could work in the Jewishness? Is that why you keep me around?
Yeah. Just purely for the jokes. What is a schlemiel spills the soup? The schlemazel gets the soup spilled on him. Mm-hmm. What is a mensch?
I think it's like, is that like a good thing? Kind of like I've understood it to be like some sort of partner of yours. Is that not correct?
No, I'll take your word.
I'm gonna look it up. Oh, I Googled it and it came up with menchies.
Oh, that's when when a Jew gets stoned.
That's a good person.
Okay.
Yay!
Oh, I got the menchies. And what's gach?
Oh my God, you're putting me on the spot. How do you spell it?
Gach is a Klingon delicacy.
Oh!
Life worms.
Okay, so you were making it funny and I forgot what it was. Give me a break.
I was testing you.
We've watched a lot of that show. That's from Next Gen.
Well, welcome to the show. You opened with Emily Post's, we have, what is the name of the book? Like Rules and Etiquette?
Just etiquette.
Emily Post, of course, famous for being the voice of what constitutes etiquette in all manners of life.
Being the tight ass.
And you were reading from the section on appearing on like radio and TV. Mm-hmm. So appropriate for our podcast. I did think halfway through that, the professional wrestlers at some point read this and decided like, we're going to do the exact opposite of this.
Yeah.
Be humble. Don't raise your voice. You're in people's living rooms. Don't upset them by, being too brash and focusing on yourself. Which is, I think, what, reality TV has gleaned that we are polite, humble people.
Well, in this book we discovered when we were at an Airbnb in St. Paul, going to see the Squirrel Nut Zippers, and we had no television at the place, and I don't even know how we stumbled upon this book, which I'm hoping this is the same edition. I had to track it down because she's had
Emily Post is like 400 years old and has been covering etiquette through centuries. Yeah, and every generation.
I'm sure she's dead now. But wait a minute, where's Emily Post from? Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. Like, I thought Emily Post was...
I remember they were making Emily Post jokes in the Three Stooges, which was a comedy from like the 30s or 40s.
She was born in Maryland. They were?
Yeah. The joke was always if someone's slobbering down like food, I'd be like, hey, where's your Emily Post? And they'd put a pinky out.
That's funny. Yeah, she was born in 1872. And we 1960.
We did find another version of this book.
Yeah,
from a different
but
era.
It was pre-war or something like that.
You voiced concern like, oh well, this doesn't seem like the right one because that one was before the like liberated woman, where the one we have is post-liberated woman, but not actually like it's also pre-feminism. It's
there's like these...
like women can go to parties, but they also have very very specific Emily Post rules as to what they do when they go to their parties. It's a gold mine in terms of content.
I mean, wouldn't it be nuts for us to plan our wedding based on this? It would be expensive.
Yeah.
And kind of a bummer, but if we followed a couple of the things, she even has how to do wedding invitations and stuff like that.
Does it involve sending potatoes to your groomsmen to be?
How much are those?
It's not expensive, but it's more than a potato should cost.
I mean, does anybody out there listening to this, does anybody have any skills with like engraving that they could engrave potatoes for Tyler to send to the guys he wants to be his groomsmen? Because he has to have a shtick for it. Whereas I've just been sending Facebook messages. If there's anybody out there that can do that.
Sure. I mean, the thing is,
you want to have a cool hook. I get it.
I was banking on this. Like, I'm only talking about it because I assume the potatoes will be in the mail by the time this goes up. So.
Oh, you're going to do it.
Yeah, almost certainly. It's like $10, $12 per potato.
Okay, and we don't have joint finances yet.
Spray painting a potato.
Oh, he's spray painting them?
I mean, I don't know. I've seen pictures of it and it looks good. And you can fit more text than you would think on a potato.
And you can keep a potato for a while. It'd be cooler if it was like a rock or something they could keep.
I was going to ask if you have any kind of poetic lines about the beauty of a potato. Like a potato it's rugged and it's there for you and it lasts for like as my groomsman, like you're my potato, like something poetic that could be on the potato.
Well, I'm sure like you could look up potato quotes.
Right. Potato quotes.
Okay. Can I tell you about something before we get started?
Sure.
Okay. I want to tell you about something that I had mentioned last time that I'd wanted to bring up. All right, let me pull it up. I'm just going to read this to you. It's not terribly. This is from the Kenosha Revisited page. Kenosha is a city in Wisconsin. I don't know why they're talking about Lake Michigan. Does Kenosha have Lake Michigan around it? I thought Kenosha was like down by Madison. Everything is down south if I don't know where it is. Do you do that? Or like it's up north?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I assume everything's south of us except for towns that they're up north because it's part of it's almost in the name. Like boy, went up to actually
Herbster,
Glen Flora. That's up north. Know how the people are up there.
Ashland.
The hill people.
Yeah,
there's.
I mean, that's real.
Yeah.
Everyone knows about the Bermuda Triangle, but few people have heard about the Lake Michigan Triangle. If you leave, Waukegan Harbor traveling east, you will arrive at it just over halfway across the Lake Michigan. Just before the triangle begins, divers have discovered an old growth forest on the bottom of the lake. The mysterious phenomenon of the Michigan Triangle first came to light in 1891 when is it schooner named the Thomas Hume set off across the lake to pick up lumber and disappeared overnight in a torrent of wind along with its crew of 7 sailors. A massive search was conducted to recover the wooden boat, but neither the boat nor a piece of driftwood was found ever. Since then, a century has been spent, and the strange events continue occurring at steady intervals. In 1921, another mysterious case known as the Rose Bell incident happened within the limits of the Michigan Triangle, in which 11 people inside the ship, who all were members of the Benton Harbor House of David, disappeared and their ship was found overturned and floating in Lake Michigan.
Next week, we'll be talking about the cult, the House of David.
Yeah. Well, the House of David, I'm assuming it's something Jewish, right?
You're the expert.
So that ship, the strange thing was the appearance of the ship, which seemed to be damaged in a collision, but no other ship had reported any accident in those days, and not a single remain of any shipwreck was noticed in the area. Many found the Rose Bell incident particularly eerie because the ship was rebuilt after an earlier wreck in the 19th century that almost met with a similar fate. And then there was the bizarre case of Captain George R. Donner. At the night of April 28th, 1937, he went to his cabin to rest. About 3 hours later, a crew member went to alert him that they were nearing the port. The door was locked from the inside. The mate broke into the cabin only to find it empty. This guy just vanished into thin air. There was not any clue as to where he would go. It's still an unsolved mystery. Then there was 1950 when the Northwest Airlines flight 2501 with 104 passengers on board crashed into the triangle of Lake Michigan and was never found again. The tragedy was remarked as the deadliest commercial airliner accident in American history at the time. Shortly before the crash, the plane disappeared from radar and lost its communication with the ground. To this day, nothing's been found of it. Whereas 2 police officers reported that 2 hours after the last communication with that flight, they saw a strange red light hovering over Lake Michigan and disappearing after 10 minutes. The statement has made the speculation that a UFO played a role in the crash. A popular theory says the Michigan Triangle mystery is centered on an ancient underwater rock formation discovered in 2007 that is lying on the floor of Lake Michigan. The 40-foot ring of rocks resembles Stonehenge. That is one of the most debating historical sites, and one stone outside the circle seems to have carvings that resemble an elephant-like prehistoric animal called the mastodon that went extinct about 10,000 years ago. So that's the Michigan Triangle. What do you think? Okay, so what do you think when you hear stuff like that, like the Bermuda Triangle? You know, like what can we? What's a logical explanation to this? Because I can just buy into this shit way too easily.
I went through a bit of a roller coaster because I haven't read a lot about the Bermuda Triangle, but I always assumed it's an area that sees a lot of ship traffic. And if there's going to be ship crashes, like it may as well be here because it's a huge like area, like a gulf of commerce, you know. And that the majority of these disappearances, like, well, you would find them at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico. This one, I was going to say the same thing, that like, well, okay, these are boats that crashed on Lake Michigan, and somebody after the fact drew a triangle around them. And then you're like, well, somebody was talking about aliens. I'm like, all right, fuck you. Somebody has, you couldn't tell the story without some guy mentioning a light in the sky.
Well, yeah, that part's a bummer.
But then the stones seem like that's, like, whether that's a make or break. Either of those stones look like Stonehenge and have mastodons on them, or they're, a circle of rocks and it's been very overblown.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd heard the story about, like a prehistoric piece of coal or rock or something that was broken open by archaeologists, and there was a shoe print inside it. It's like a 40,000-year-old piece of rock, you know? And I looked it up because I was like, well, this is how stuff, like, it's a divot in the sand, and somebody editorialized, and then I looked it up and like, it's a shoe print. It's unmistakably a shoe print. And it's like, yeah, the details make or break it. You heard about it was in Rant, when the time travel guy is talking about coincidences in time travel. The things he's mentioned, I looked at them all up and they're all true. A gold necklace found in some old piece of, amber or something, and.
Huh.
So, yeah, no, we'll see. I'd like to see what these rocks look like.
Yeah. I mean, there must be a way, you know, here's the photo. I'll post this. Like, there's a photo of the triangle itself. And it's like...
Yeah, the Bermuda Triangle, I think, is 3, like, ports or something.
Sheboygan.
It's an area where, like, this is, like, the Caribbean or Puerto Rico and the mainland. And, like, there's like, that just looks like somebody drew a triangle over a map where they found the most shipwrecks.
Well, yeah.
Okay, I mean...
Conveniently, maybe. All I'm saying is that in these coordinates, a bunch of shit has happened, and it's in the shape of a triangle.
Did you know on Lake Superior, there is an island that has a lake on it, and that lake has an island, and on that island is a pond, and in the middle of the pond is a boulder, and on the boulder is like a divot that if it gets enough rain, this divot in the boulder fills up, and that small body of water makes it's like a world record for this body of water on an island, in the water, on an island, in the water, on an island, in the water. That's somewhere in Lake Superior. Also mastodon carvings everywhere.
When I went to Madeline Island, which you've never been yet, that's where Tom's Burned Down Cabin is. Or, no, Tom's Burned Down Cafe. And there's also, like, there was a guy who lived on one of the islands all by himself. It was a total, like, shut-in and would come to Madeline Island to get supplies, which I don't know how that works because there's barely anything there. But I wonder, was there anybody living on this island?
No, I don't believe so.
Oh, okay. Because I wonder if it's one of the Apostle Islands.
I mean, there's probably a hotel on it now, because whatever.
I'm going to beckon the kitty. Come on. I have to beg him for 10 minutes usually, but I won't tonight because I got to do a show. But who's going to go first? Do you have anything interesting to tell me?
There's something interesting to tell you.
Yeah, I want to hear this because you were working on it while I was making your lunches.
It is unusual.
Eating dinner.
Whether it's cool or not, I will leave up to your judgment. It's a story about a woman named Margaret Lovett. But the story
Ouch!
The story starts with a man named John C. Lilly. John C. Lilly was a neuroscientist and a physicist and inventor.
Lilly?
And an author.
Like Lilly Pharmaceuticals?
I don't know.
Okay.
He was born in the early 20th century. I think he just died in like 2001 or something. But he was a scientist. He conducted.
Died 18 years ago.
Fuck, 18 years.
Just you got to accept your mortality where you're at.
So he conducted like experiments in World War II, like for the army, I think. But he was considered. He came to prominence in the 40s, 50s, 60s as a like counterculture scientist who was kind of pushing the bounds of what science should look into and what is possible.
Was it weird like women's sexual stuff?
We'll get into what his focus was. Specifically,
no. Is it going to be weird boob stuff or weird orgasm stuff?
He wrote a paper called Weird Boob Stuff.
Boobs. So what's up with those?
He had studied whales when he was, or I think he had been around whales at a young age and had been kind of fascinated by, because at the time we linked intelligence with brain size. So whales, of course, were considered to possibly be very intelligent, and through this logic, he came to be very fascinated with dolphins, who exhibit, of course, very intelligent behavior. As we know now, dolphins have a lot of very unique characteristics for animals. They have, emotion and empathy, and they have sex for pleasure. They wish
they do?
Yes. They wish the bathroom stalls would go all the way to the floor, stuff like that.
They have sex for pleasure?
Yes. I think it's just humans and chimps and dolphins.
Chimps also?
Chimps, I don't know. They fuck so much you have to assume they must, but I don't. That was actually an assumption I just made, but Dolphins are one of a very select few that has sex for pleasure.
Okay.
Anyway.
I'm going to stop because I want to say more about dolphins, but I won't.
But he had witnessed scientists who were studying dolphins who had the scientists were making sort of noises and getting the dolphins to replicate the noises. And this was a big breakthrough. And to John Lilly, he reasoned that this behavior indicated an ambition on the dolphins' part to communicate with the humans around them. If so, here were exciting new opportunities for interspecies communication. Lilly published his theory in a book in 1961 called Man and Dolphin. The idea of talking dolphins, eager to tell us something, was the sort of theme of the book. Man and Dolphin extrapolated on his initial observations of dolphins mimicking human voices right through to teaching them to speak English and on ultimately to a cetacean. I Googled it while we were sitting here. I'm going to edit all this out. Cetacean.
Subcutaneous?
Cetacean, I think, describes like animals, mammals in the water, probably, or water and cetacean. Sorry, let me start that again.
Why?
Right through to teaching them to speak English and on ultimately to a cetacean chair at the United Nations, where all marine mammals would have an enlightening input into world affairs, widening our perspectives on everything from science to history, economics, and current affairs. This was his sort of pitch to what we could gain from this. And so with this in mind, he built a bunch of facilities around the world to study dolphins, and
Is
one
this
in particular.
About bestiality?
Look, you're just gonna have to take this ride with me. One of these facilities was called Dolphin Island, or the Dolphin House. Sorry, it was an island on a Caribbean island called St. Thomas. He had built this facility that had a water tank for his 3 dolphins that he was studying on the first floor, and then on the second floor was the labs where the people would work. So on this Caribbean island, St. Thomas, this woman, Margaret Lovett, who the story is actually about, lived, and she had a great interest in animals her whole life. And when she had heard that there was this,
what's her name?
Margaret Lovett. I wish you wouldn't Google it because I don't want to.
I just want to see what you look.
I don't want things to be spoiled before.
No, I just want to see what you look like.
She had heard that
she's not a sex kitten.
It's pretty misogynist of you to care what she looks like. So she heard about this dolphin house, and so it was right on her island. So she took a drive down, and according to the articles I read, she kind of just got into this group of scientists just by pure enthusiasm. She wanted to see the dolphins, and she took meticulous notes. She was just very, passionate about studying the dolphins, and the scientists love it. Another guy named Garrett, I think, they were like, oh, I mean, all right, like, why tell her no? She seems like a great research assistant. So
I'm paid, I'm sure.
That's the best science.
Good for her.
Gregory Bateson, sorry, was the other scientist's name. So she here's about John Lilly's vision for dolphins at the United Nations. She's into it. And so they let her in. She becomes kind of part of this team, and she becomes the kind of head, student who's doing the work studying animal to human communication between humans and dolphins. As she describes it though, but even as the state-of-the-art facility, like the Dolphin House, barriers remained. Quote, every night we would all get into our cars and pull the garage door down and drive away. And I thought, well, here's this big brain floating around all night. It amazed me that everybody kept leaving, and I thought it was just wrong. So she reasons that if she could spend her mission, it becomes of these 3 dolphins, there's one named Peter. And they're trying to, they decide Peter's the one who hasn't had any, voice mimicking kind of training. He's the most,
dolphin?
most dolphin pure of the 3. And they decide that's the one she's going to try and teach Peter to speak English.
It's not speaking English though. I mean, it's just mimicking. If you say to a dolphin, how's it going? They're not going to go, good.
Well,
they're going to probably just go, how's it going? Right?
I mean, you're a believer or not. But this was what they were. The study was being led by a man who thought the dolphins would sit on a chair of the United Nations. So that's her mission statement is to teach Peter how to speak. And so she's spending all these days with him, and she decides that, like, well, I think I need to spend, like, if we're just around each other all the time, we can form this bond, and that's maybe what's important. So what she pitches, and what John Lilly is way into, is the idea that they would flood the second floor of the labs as well with a few feet of water. They would waterproof everything, and that way Peter could swim everywhere while she lived there 6 days a week. Her bed was kind of above the waterline, and her desk was suspended from the ceiling, so she could sleep there and work there, and Peter would just be around, and they would form this sort of mother-son bond, you know.
And she put her boobs on the glass.
One of the dolphins are one of the few species that enjoy boobs on glass. It's humans and dolphins, I think.
I'm just seeing this isn't going to go on a weird place.
So this is
going to go in a bad place.
1964 is when she turns up. By the summer of 1965, Lovett's domestic dolphinarium was ready for use. Lying in bed surrounded by water that first night and listening to the pumps gurgling away, she remembers questioning what she was doing. Quote, human people were out there having dinner or whatever, and here I am. There's moonlight reflecting on the water, this fin and this bright eye looking at you, and I thought, wow, why am I here? But then you... that was her off ramp that she didn't take.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But then you get back into it, and it never occurred to me not to do it. What I was doing there was trying to find out what Peter was doing there and what we could do together. That was the whole point, and nobody had done that. So she's doing these speech lessons with him, but at the same time, she's kind of just learning, like, the way people study apes, and you find out a lot about them, just the way they live, and you find out their personalities because they're very smart creatures. This is what she's doing with Peter because she's essentially living with him. And she described it, this experience, quote, when we had nothing to do was when he did the most. She reflects, quote, he was very, very interested in my anatomy. If I was sitting here and my legs were in the water, he would come up and look at the back of my knee for a long time. He wanted to know how that thing worked, and I was so charmed by it. So it's going to take some weird turns. Instead, the article goes on.
It turns out dolphins can lick things for an hour at a time.
Yeah. It's one of the things dolphins don't have in common with humans is that dolphins aren't counting up the minutes while they're doing it that they expect to be repaid.
Is that what you do?
No, that's a quip from Rant about how... So anyway, she's going on with these lessons, and she discovers a problem. Quote, dolphins get sexual urges.
Oh, no.
Says the vet Andy Williamson, who looked after the animal's health at this dolphin house. Quote, I'm sure Peter had plenty of thoughts along those lines. So... to Margaret Lovett, she's trying to give him these speech lessons, and he would be rubbing himself on her knee or my foot or my hand. And at first I would put him downstairs with the girls, she says, but transporting him downstairs proved to be so disruptive to the lessons that faced with these frequent arousals, it seemed easier for Lovett to just relieve his urges herself manually. So, I mean, we can say it once and move on. But there's dolphin hand jobs happening. There's dolphin hand jobs. And as a scientist, as she describes it, at least, like, it's not, she's like, this is just a physical matter we have to get out of the way. She's like,
she's not a scientist.
That's true. But she did just point out that, like,
what's the dolphin dick look like?
There's a lot of interesting, actually, science about what a dolphin dick is capable of. And it's like so full of muscle and dexterity. It can like tiptoe and write letters and stuff, because that's how vaginas as well. The trail I went on after this is weird.
I'm glad that I must have been at work when you were doing these kinds of searches.
So anyway, the way she describes it is like, oh, this is just a physical thing we have to get out of the way. Like, she wasn't taking him to a private room. Like, this was in public. She's like, we just have to get rid of his urges so we can move on.
Would you be cool if I did that?
I don't know. And I'm just describing what her defense is, because the rest of the world seems to have a problem with this. At some point, Hustler magazine gets word of what's happening at the Dolphin House, and they wrote a article called Interspecies Love, like Woman and Dolphin. And it's like a satirical, fan fiction about what's happening, and she turns into, she's like everyone's and she's like, it's the worst thing I've ever, people are describing as this disgusting thing that's going on in this dolphin house. And so she's
how long does it take to do that?
I have an answer, so I'll get into that, and it's not because of this story. But anyway, so this is just a part of what's happening. Like, this is something that needs to happen so she can do her vocal lessons. And so those are carrying on. And then as we get into the mid and late 60s, this doctor, I keep forgetting names the longer I get into my stories. John Lilly, this counterculture scientist, he starts to get into, LSD. And considerations of what LSD can do to the mind and what it can do to learning. And he's thinking like, well, if we can expand the consciousness of humans and dolphins, we might be onto something. So against Margaret's protests, he starts dosing the dolphins with LSD.
Have you ever taken LSD?
A few times. Yeah.
You've taken LSD?
Yeah.
Is that what acid is?
Yes.
And you liked it?
It didn't hate it. I didn't have the weird, existential crises I had on mushrooms.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he's dosing these dolphins, and he's getting a little annoyed because the dolphins aren't reacting to acid. Quote, Andy Williamson, the vet at the Dolphin House, quote, different species react to different pharmaceuticals in different ways. A tranquilizer made for horses might induce a state of excitement for a dog. Playing with pharmaceuticals is a tricky business, to say the least. So he's injecting these dolphins with acid. And shortly after this, his
And the dolphin that has the sexual urges is named Peter.
Yes. By autumn of 1966, Dr. Lilly's interest in the speaking dolphin experiment was dwindling. I love it. Describes this time as, it didn't have the zing to it that LSD did. She's trying to do these vocal speeches, and this guy is everything in his study is changing to fit the shape of him being on acid all the time, and her vocal training doesn't fit into it anymore.
So he's like, why don't you have sex with that dolphin in front of me?
I'm so high to just have sex with that dolphin. We're going to learn so much. But anyway, what eventually happens is Dr. Lilly's funding gets taken away because there's so much LSD happening, so much experimentation that they eventually pull funding, and this dolphin house gets shut down. And Lovett finds out that she wants to take the dolphin home because she spent 6 months with it now, or a few years, and they won't let her take it home. So what happens instead is Peter gets sent to a different facility in Miami that is apparently it's not a house that's flooded and open. It's like a bank vault that has water in it. And so they send the dolphin there, and the dolphin commits suicide.
Could a dolphin get a human pregnant?
These are big questions. It's big questions that I'm sure Lilly was asking himself. But I don't know if you know this. Dolphins breathe manually. It's not it's unconscious. Like, they have to choose to breathe. So Peter in this bank vault took a breath and just sunk to the bottom and died. So it's, I guess, open to interpretation if he killed himself out of loneliness. But that's what happened to him. Dr. Lilly goes on to, he has his own like fan website. He apparently wrote a lot of books about meeting God and psychedelics. He turned into a bit of a hippie. He also invented the isolation tank, and wrote a bit more about dolphins and humanity. He had a big presence up through his death, I think. And Margaret Lilly still talks about this now when she did these interviews about, this bond she had. And we don't have to get into these, but the other websites I found, the one I found was a website called dolphiness.net, which is a site for people who are into human dolphin sex. Just sort of unashamed dolphin erotica and the anatomy of a dolphin. Dolphins have sex for about a minute, in case you're wondering. That is the length of a... I won't click the link. I guess it's not that important, but there is a link on this website about dolphin sexuality facts. But here's what pissed me off.
Why won't you click it?
Because I feel like I was probably losing you. Dolphinist.net. Dolphin sexuality facts. They have very creative ways of seeking pleasure. Perhaps the most creative form of animal masturbation, wrapping a live wriggling eel around its penis. He detailed the bizarre technique in his 2011 book. David Linden is the guy they're talking about. In his 2011 book, Pleasure, which studied the way creatures' brains react to different types of stimulation. Gay sex is used to find wingmen.
Wingmen? You fuck somebody to
and
find
then he's
out
like,
they're
"This is
a
my
wingman?"
bro. Like, this guy's gonna." Dolphins have a gang culture around finding and keeping sexual partners. They have sex for about a minute. Humans and dolphins do have some romantic history. Sexual acts between the two isn't anything new. Arthur Malcolm Brenner wrote a book, Wet Goddess, based on his 9-month sexual relationship living at the Florida Land Amusement Park in 1970.
So he was fucking a dolphin.
He was having a intense sexual relationship. Yeah, he's fucking a dolphin.
Doesn't it feel like most of the time, other than the point of the story, that it's guys? I suppose because it's easier to put something into a hole versus requiring something to put it into yours.
Aren't there a wide array of animals that we've learned will hump and put their dick in anything they can? So if you were on the other end, you could find a lot of things that would fuck you if they could, just out of pure, but you don't have that. It's not lovemaking. That's the thing. It's not, you don't have that connection. Anyway, male dolphins have penises that can swivel and feel like a hand. They're very, very dynamic. They look like an alien, like kind of, tentacle.
How big are they?
They're like a foot. I saw pictures on this site. Also, they described the dolphin vagina as being equally as dexterous. Like the muscles,
cavernous.
The muscles are described as like when you're with those muscles, like they envelop and dolphins bite during sex. Aggressive group sex is common. It's always belly to belly, which is nice. They look in each other's eyes when they yeah, there's a whole like 2 paragraphs on the dolphin vagina at the bottom of this that I won't get into. But anyway, this site has a list of video games that feature dolphins. In case you're looking for them. Here's the thing that pissed me off. If this is a site dedicated to this very specific fetish, that's one thing. They're like, we're going to be proud of it. Here's the site. We can all be this community together. But then on this site, there's all these links, and then it's like horse section. And it's like, well, are you even taking this seriously? If you're going to like, for all you horse fuckers, here's some more. And then like at the bottom, there's like furries and it's like, well, you can't cast such a wide net if you're going to be so own your fetish. Don't sell out to the horse fuckers.
This truly does make your Valentine's Day comic about your fetishes being harmless very true.
Yeah.
I don't even really know how many I don't really know what's considered a fetish.
I think it's yeah, I don't know if the things I would self-apply, I don't know if they count as fetishes, because I think that it becomes a fetish once it's possible for people to hear and be like, ooh, like once there's like a societal concern, like, that's what makes it a fetish, I think.
You don't have any of those?
I don't think so.
I mean, are you drunk enough to tell me on this podcast if you did? We're getting married. I should know.
I don't think so.
I don't think so is a very clever response.
I want to leave the door open in case I develop any down the line.
Oh, great.
I've been reading a lot about dolphins lately. They're really smart.
You didn't cross the line, but you were riding it pretty good with that one.
The punchline I wanted to get to was that like I didn't mean to forgive human dolphin sex, but the reason I was trying to was that like that's the weird part, but she's like that was just a part of it. I like the fact that the punchline is that it takes an even weirder turn where the sign's just like, give them all acid, and we'll see what happens, and he just loses his funding.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess we're not going to talk about it. Wisconsin did just sign into law that bestiality is. Did you see that?
No, I'm waiting for this last word.
Legal
or illegal? Because I would believe either one.
It's not cool. It's a felony.
Thank God. Finally got there.
Yeah. Yeah, people were joking like, oh, thank goodness, or whatever. That's one thing. A lot going on with that, isn't there? Anyway.
Next week for the intro, I'm gonna go through this Dr. Lily's like fan website. It's like a 1990s GeoCities website. That's what it looks like.
Oh,
but
my favorite.
He got into so much stuff aside from this weird experiment, and there's like people quotes about him. Like he is a fascinating person, and this was just one chapter. This would be Margaret Lovett's entire life story. But to Dr. Lilly, it was just that was one book, and he moved on. Like, okay, well, I thought they would sit at the UN, but instead they're just like every other human guy, which is they just hang around home and try to get hand jobs. Guess they're not that smart after all.
I wonder if Margaret Lovett is related to Lyle Lovett. God, I hope not. I'm not going to look it up because I'm going to see.
It was VAT, I believe. If that makes you feel better.
Oh, well, that's pulling up somebody different Margaret Lovett. Oh, well, this is a whole different person. Okay. Anyway, well, and next week we're going to be talking about a haunted house experience.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little something about a story I didn't know about. It's a Wisconsin murder. Yes, folks, you heard it here. We live in Wisconsin, and sometimes there's murder. And I'm going to talk about one. You ready?
Is this one of those
not a classic
up north murders?
It's down in Milwaukee.
You know. Okay.
Hey, you have a relative who wrote a book about Milwaukee.
Yes.
We should. Who's that? Why don't we get them on the show?
I will ask him. That's actually a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like Milwaukee Mayhem.
Yeah.
Was the name of the book?
This one's called Lost Milwaukee. Carl Swanson has a book called Lost Milwaukee. Here's a story from it. But yeah, I would love to talk. That would be a really super fun. As long as that member of your family is still talking to you.
I don't know about him in particular, but his family at large, I think, is somewhat religious. So he might not have made it through the dolphin story.
Yeah, if he's like, what's this show you do? Send me a link. Oh, no.
I did that a long time ago in Wisconsin Bound in a less in-depth form is when I first told that story. And
About the dolphins?
I was such a fan of that.
Oh, you recycled it, huh?
Yeah, but I didn't, deep dive it like this.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was such a fan of it that I was like, it's only our second episode, and I brought that one out because that's one of my favorite.
I did the bystander one was my very first episode of this show, my very last episode of my last show. So that's how much I like that. In February 1952, Arno Schultz walked into a nightmare. Returning from an out-of-town business trip, let's put that in quotes, considering the year, Arno found the body of his wife, Catherine Schultz, 38. She'd been killed by multiple gunshot blasts in the family's upper floor flat at 2616 North Holton Street. He ran from the building to summon police without realizing his son Robert, 11, and daughter Kathleen, 6, were also lying dead in the flat. The boy had died as he crawled under his bed to escape the killer. Police found the little girl huddled in a closet in which she attempted to hide, which is another one of my fucking nightmares. Like the idea, like especially children, but like anytime, it's even like the bystander one from last week with Kitty, like you think you're going to get away or I'm going to hide or something.
That's crucial. That's the crux of most of my nightmares.
Yeah, and just like I'm going to talk about the Frank Lloyd Wright one again because there was a murder at Taliesin in Spring Green, Wisconsin that always gets me in that same way. Oops, I bumped something. Oh, I did it again. Anyway, so that kind of stuff always fucking horrifies me. At almost the same time, and nearly 400 miles away, Missouri State Highway Patrol troopers pulled over a driver for speeding. Thinking the man was acting strangely, they decided to detain him and check into his story. That's when Arnold Schultz's nightmare took another turn. His 16-year-old son, John Schultz, was under arrest in Missouri. That's who did this. His son.
Wait. Okay, hold on. This happened in Wisconsin.
And this cat drove 400 miles to Missouri.
To get away? Or
yeah.
Okay.
And this is the son of the dad who discovers
Who
this.
forgot that he had 2 children for a second there? Okay. I mean, that's fine, but just so we got our facts straight.
Well, you make a valid point. Yeah, okay. He had murdered his mother, then his brother, and finally his kid sister. The cause? An argument over borrowing the family car.
Yeah. I mean, but this was in the 50s where the family has one car and it's a big deal if you have that date. And
you've been making excuses for dolphin sex. Now here we are. Like,
also, that explains why he was found in Missouri is because he did this. He's like, well, I'm taking this for a joyride. No one's going to tell me no now.
There's only one other person that needs a car now. And Dad probably had his own car to go to work.
For his business trips, yeah.
Yeah, right, in quotes. An anguished Arnold Schultz told the Milwaukee Sentinel reporter, "This has wiped out everything I have been fighting for. His mother, his brother, his darling little sister. But John is my flesh and blood." Although there had been trouble, John had been expelled from school, had stolen money, was once caught driving a stolen car. He seemed like a normal adolescent. Sometimes he stayed out late and sometimes he slept in late. He also washed the car when asked. These are the things that came out in the stories around this time, right? These are his redeeming qualities. He washed the car when asked, was happy to help paint and repair their apartment. He enjoyed hunting and fishing with his father and worked part-time at Sperry Candy Company. He earned $44 every 2 weeks and gave his mother $22 from each paycheck.
We weren't quite at the Criminal Minds level of psychology, understanding, peeling back the brain in the right places where both sides of that is like, hey, look, he had a job, he washed the car. And then the other side's like, I mean, he was sleeping in. Sometimes he's staying up late. Like, yeah, both of these are normal things that.
Yeah.
Like, also, I mean, he had a shrine. He had been expelled. A shrine where he kept scalps. Like,
well, he did get expelled from school. That's still a little out of neither of us had that happen. You know, and we were both. Okay, so the cops are like, what's going on? You know, a reporter from the Milwaukee Sentinel gets the boy's statement and gives it, right? This is what he told the cops. Can I have that or is it burned out? Here's his statement. I got home about 1 a.m. Saturday morning after being out Friday night, and my mom and I got arguing. I wanted to use the car to go to the Riverside South basketball game at Pulaski High School.
He wanted to go down to Tashi's and pick up some power converters and
Pulaski. When I was a kid, I had a pen pal from Pulaski. Her name was Wanda Kudrick.
Pulaski's a town?
Yeah. Yep.
I thought that was
Oh my God,
I
it's
assumed it was
outside
the
of
last name
Milwaukee.
of 40% of people in Wisconsin.
Wow. I got to just write down Wanda Kudrick because I haven't remembered that for years. We had this little thing where we had a pen pal and mine happened to be from Pulaski and her name was that. And I haven't remembered that for about 20 years or 30. So anyway, Dad was gone to lacrosse and my mom wouldn't let me have the car. So this kid had a pattern, as we've heard, of getting home later than he should have. So his parents made a rule. Getting in late meant spending the weekend at home. So the mom and him argued on and off all day Saturday about the basketball game, about how he wanted to go.
Oh, not the basketball game. You can't miss that.
It's the event of the year. There are going to be layups.
Yeah.
And
You know the length of the shorts were in that time.
oh my God.
I mean, that's you'd be talking about that the rest of your life.
I was a basketball cheerleader and I still don't understand the sport.
Adam played basketball in like junior high. Someone a very very tall guy. He's not really sports inclined, but he was like talked into playing basketball in 7th or 8th grade because of his height. And I went to one of his games and he didn't have, like he forgot his shorts or something. And so when the team came out of the locker room, he had on this pair of shorts that was as close to like Daisy Dukes as like it was ridiculously short.
Is that like the only thing somebody had to give to him, or was it like a shame thing?
No, I don't think they were humiliating him. I think that was all they had available. Also, he scored a point in his own basket. I'm not trying to shame him for sports. I ran directly into a ref when I played football because the whole sport made me so nervous that I broke away from the opposing team. I was clear for the end zone, and I was so nervous I just ran straight into a ref. Even worse, the ref did not budge. I went down. The ref stood his ground, and I crumpled when I hit him.
Well, you were
like a wave breaking against a rock.
6th grade. I mean, what are you going to knock down an adult? You don't make that part of the story. You're not going to knock down an adult. You're just a small child.
He shouldn't be hitting the ref. I chose to believe that the ref should have gotten out of the way, but I assume he thought
he should have pretended to fall.
Yeah, he could have given me that at least. Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't like him. Okay. So anyway, this kid eats supper that surely his mom makes.
Right.
He goes to the attic.
He's mad at mom, but he's not gonna not eat supper.
Right. He's like, well, she makes good casseroles, so he eats. He goes to the attic. He has his dad has a 410, like it's written here, .410. I was trying to figure out how to say it because there's like 30-06. There's things I know how to say.
Is that a caliber that
it must be
only
a
existed in 1950?
.410 gauge bolt action shotgun.
Send your corrections about guns to mail at coolandunusualpunishment.com.
Please. Tell us how to say that. 420. We would know.
It's one of them shoot 'em guns, right?
He fully loaded the gun with 3 shells in the clip and 1 in the chamber. He also shoved extra shells into his pocket.
Hold on. I actually am confused now. He loaded it fully, 3 bullets and 1 in the chamber. How big are these? It's like a Desert Eagle, like a 50 caliber pistol is enormous. So a 410 would be very close to that. What kind of gun carries 4 bullets? That's.
It was the 50s.
It's a man who has his own car to have his affairs probably can afford a gun like that. Lacrosse affairs, you know how those go.
Yeah. So he before entering into the kitchen where his mom was washing shirts in the sink. Oh my God. So, okay. He leans the gun against the wall. This gets disturbing for me. I don't know. Now we're a little drunk, so maybe it'll be funny. I called my mother by her first name and she turned to face me. Then you have to realize, well, see, you're kind of getting into it because your stepdad knit up. But as a mother, to be killed by your own kid? Holy shit. So he calls her by her first name and she turns to face him. When I asked again for the car keys, she said, they're in the house, but she's not going to tell me where they are. I said, I'll find them myself.
That's the baiting sort of comment that a mother makes when she doesn't think her son is going to shoot her.
Yeah, or
they're here in the house, but I ain't telling. Like that's.
And I'm busy.
She didn't see the gun when she said
washing
that.
Clothing in the sink because your father requires a second car for affairs.
That's the most like if that was in the papers at the time. That was definitely some writer. It was like, well, let's paint a picture. She's in the kitchen. She's washing the clothes in the sink. You know how it'd be.
And maybe everybody did that then. I'm not sure. And we also don't know that the dad was having affairs, but it feels like the time. I've seen Mad Men. So he gets the gun and just starts shooting. Okay.
Well, okay.
The impact of the...
At a maximum 4 times, I'm guessing. No, he has a pocket full of giant bullets.
The impact of the first shot knocked her down, her head hitting the sink as she fell. She was moaning and struggling to get back on her feet when he shot her again. So then, this is more of his quotes. Then Bobby yelled that he was going to tell the police on me and ran to the phone. He fired at the 11-year-old, striking him in the shoulder. Screaming, the boy fled to his bedroom, where a second shot knocked him to the floor. As Schultz paused to reload, the wounded child tried to drag himself under his bed. Schultz stood over him, aiming straight down, and shot him a third time. Well, this is fucking disturbing as fuck. I'm really sorry. He told the investigators, he was especially fond of his kid sister, but she was screaming, so he shot her twice. I had to shut her up, he told the police. I went to the kitchen, he said. I heard oh my God. This is rough. Okay, I'm so sorry. This is what I do, though. I went to the kitchen. I heard a few gurgling sounds, so I leaned over my mother and fired point blank at her heart. Then I went back into the bedroom and shot each of the kids once more. After that, there was no noise. It had taken 11 shots to kill his mother, brother, and sister.
That's several... The back and forth he's doing and the amount of reloading he has to do suggests like any idea that this is a like crime of passion, like oh, it got crazy, suddenly everyone's dead. Like this is like not planned, but it is like I hear some noise. Let me pack down the gunpowder and get into the bedroom because my little sister is still
who he was
noise.
fond of.
I'm fond of. That is a fucked up thing to say.
And this guy was in high school.
No, don't get me wrong. I'm fond of her.
Yeah, but she was making noise, and I had to shut her up, is what he said. So he found the car keys in a jewel box. He takes the contents of his mother's purse.
Okay. He didn't think to just look for the keys before all this went off. Like, you know what? There they are. Shit. All right.
Yeah.
Does it say? I'm very curious to know if he went to the basketball game.
Well,
and then made a break from Missouri, since that's what was the important. That was
Listen
the reason.
to this, right? He takes $75 out of his dead mom's purse.
Sure.
He drags her body into her bedroom, closes the door. Then he calls 2 friends.
Okay. That's a teenager thing to do. That's the
everything's fine.
I'm trying to think of a teenager problem that doesn't implicate me. Oh no, I left porn on the computer and it's burned into the monitor. Like, I'll just turn it around. That it's this kind of desperate solution.
Oh my gosh. Watching porn on your family computer is a gamble.
That didn't happen. They found the history searches a few times and
they did? And they were like boys.
One time, I got blamed for, he would tell me years later, it's like, my mom asked Trav about it, he's like, it wasn't me, and my mom came to me. Yeah. He's like, yeah, I don't know, I just said it wasn't me, and
did you guys know to clear the history?
I mean,
this was going to catch up with you later in life.
I was going to say, it's even if you slip up once and, you get out of a bad relationship. So sometimes it's not the worst thing in the world. Smut. That's what my mom used to call it. Okay, wait. Oh, so he drags the mom's body.
Yeah, he calls two friends. Okay. He's like, hey, nice. I'll drive you to the high school basketball game.
Fuck yeah. Okay. I mean, all right.
On the way, he goes to a movie theater. He attempts to set up a date with a cashier he had dated before. He told the young woman. Now.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. And he's like,
it's got to be the next few days.
She's like, I'm going to be working late. So he's like, okay, well, we're going to go on to the game. They got there after 8 p.m.
Whenever you get off, like, I'm going to be up all night, like, just drinking Mountain Dew and hanging out. Like, I have no curfew tonight for some reason.
He said about the game, the screams of the crowd made me think of home, and I had a hard time keeping it out of my mind.
I mean, I don't.
After the game, they go for a meal at the Pig and Whistle Drive-In.
Awesome.
On Capitol Drive in Shorewood. Then they spent some time at an arcade.
This is a wonderful vignette of 1950s America, except for the part where this guy murdered his family. Like, what he did afterwards is really, like, kind of
He drops off his friends. He goes home.
The Pig and Whistle.
Yeah. He goes home after that. He shaves, bathes, dresses, packs a suitcase. Returning to the car, he heads south and begins a long, meandering journey through Illinois. Once he fell asleep at the wheel and drove off the road, damaging the car's bodywork. He got the car back on the highway. He kept moving.
His mom was right to not give him the keys. Curse you, Mom.
For a while, he says, I was forced to drive along behind a station wagon. He said there were 3 children in the back seat, and they kept smiling and waving at me. So that made him feel bad. He stops for lunch on Sunday.
Okay. I find all of this, I don't know where he got these quotes, if it was to police or like.
Oh, it was interview. To the Journal Sentinel in Milwaukee.
But it seems very dishonest, like this. Like, I saw kids and that made me think of it, and I felt bad. I heard the roar of the crowd, and as if this wasn't like, I was thinking about this date, and I was thinking about that popcorn and Twizzlers, and then I heard the roar of the crowd, and I thought, oh my God, I killed my family. It was a real bummer. These kids waving at me, they look like my little sister that I was fond of. And I thought, fuck them. Like, boy, it really, really ruined my road trip that I happened to be on. That I'm not thinking about why.
With the car I really wanted. So he goes for lunch on Sunday outside of St. Louis. He keeps going. He starts driving a little faster. Okay. So that attracts the attention of 2 Missouri State troopers. They pursue him for 8 miles with speeds reaching 80 miles per hour, which in that time was quite fast. And they make him pull over.
Okay.
So John told the troopers he was just out for a ride, but he was young, far from home, and driving a car with fresh body damage. So pass that whiskey my way as long as you're coughing up a lung.
Don't say anything important because I have to cut out those coughs. I was going to say, he gave the state troopers the dragging your mom into the bedroom and closing the door defense of... the car's fucked up. I'm a teenager. I'm 400 miles from home and just led you on a high speed chase for 8 miles. Like, hey, I'm just out for a ride. Come on. Yeah. All right.
Oh, that e-cig is dead. Damn it. Yeah. So they're like, okay, well, you're saying all this stuff, but your car looks like shit. So they're like, why don't you come with us? And we're going to call the Milwaukee police headquarters and see what's going on with you, kid. Okay. So you just sit tight. So somebody there says, hey, we'll check into it. We'll get back to you. And they're like, cool. Minutes later, they get a call back and they're like, oh, well, guess what? There was a triple murder on Holton Street and we've got a missing person from that home. And his name is John Schultz.
Does this line up perfectly with the husband getting home and just...
Well, the husband
who discovers them first?
The husband
or the police?
Yeah, so the husband must have called it in. And so now, at some point, he realizes, oh shit, my kid's missing. I'm sure the husband didn't realize at that point that his
he remembered
kid
that
was
2 of his kids were dead. And then he was like,
I think
I could have sworn. Well, the car's gone. I remember that. I know the station wagon is gone. I can tell you guys that much.
Yeah. 48 hours after the murders, John Schultz is arrested. He goes back to Milwaukee. There's hundreds of curious onlookers at the train station. He comes on train, okay? His father was at the police headquarters. He wanted to be present while his son was booked. He would stand by his son throughout the trial. The dad says this, "My son is no better than any other person who violates the law, but still you stick by your own flesh and blood, don't you?" A few days later, this guy, John, the murderer, attends a visitation for his mother, brother, and sister. And the paper describes a strange scene at the funeral home. He glanced briefly into the open coffins.
He gave the eulogy. You know, I was quite fond of her.
I'm so sorry.
Basketball game tonight. I'd like to get out of here early because there's a basketball game tonight.
Yeah. He glanced briefly into the open coffins of his mom and younger brother. His expression, the reporter wrote, was one of mild interest. He paused a bit longer at the little coffin containing the 6-year-old. It seemed that some emotion might reach the surface, but it never did. A moment later, he was in the sheriff's car smoking a cigarette. So a funeral started, and he was already back in his jail cell. His dad was crying throughout the service, as he should, you know. So on June 16th, 1952, John Schultz got a life sentence for the first degree. We don't have capital punishment anymore in Wisconsin. The last case of that was, I believe, in 1852, something like that. I've covered it before.
You know, I'll be honest. I'm between bestiality and capital punishment. I think we made the right choice in terms of what we banned first. I'm not saying one's good and one's not, but I'm glad that was the one we focused on. Capital punishment.
Yeah, I maybe we'll cover that again, because the reason why capital punishment is not a thing anymore in Wisconsin, specifically, it's a pretty rough story. I covered it, and there's actually pieces at the Wisconsin Historical Society in Madison of the last time.
I was going to say pieces of an innocent man, because that tends to be the thing that
it's pieces of what they used, and it's a quite significant case. Maybe I'll cover that next time after we do the haunted house, because it's a really good story, in quotes good. So anyway, he gets a life sentence for the first degree murder of his mom and brother, 2 concurrent 14 to 25 year sentences for the second degree of his brother and sisters. I don't know the difference in those degrees offhand. I feel like I should, considering I've had my share of things, my share of personal experiences with this kind of thing, but I don't know offhand. So they take him to state prison in Waupun. They, on their way, there's a photo actually. On the way, they stop at Graceland Cemetery on Milwaukee's northwest side when Arnold was waiting for them beside the graves of his wife and children. For a few minutes, father and son stood together looking at the headstones. There's a photo of it. Then John, calm as ever, returns to the car to start his life sentence. And I don't know. Arnold Schultz, red-eyed and visibly shaken, looked backward once, back to where a white cross decorated with daisies and a yellow rose gleamed in the sunlight. And that's how it ends. Now, John Schultz, I do not know if he's dead or alive, but that's the story. So anyway.
He'd be, what, 70, 80? He'd certainly still be alive if he's...
Yeah, well, let's see if here's...
I'm curious if there's a more recent interview where he's like, you know, I thought basketball was going to be way more important in my life than it turned out to be.
I don't know if he is alive or dead. It's kind of a common name in this state, you know, so there's like, I'll look it up because I'm not for sure if he's dead or not. So anyway, yeah, that's that story. What you gotta say about that?
We don't have an outro yet. 2 for 2 now. We tend to be very drunk by the time we're required to improvise one.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we're cool and unusual punishment. So, what's a riff on that? Stay cool.
This has been the
unusual.
show. this has been the show. We certainly thank you for listening and hope you had a cool and unusual time. We're on Facebook and Instagram, and we have an email that you can send your thoughts to at mail@coolandunusualpunishment.com.
Oh, and hey, I have October 17th at the Story Club in Minneapolis at the Bryant Lake and Bowl. I'm talking about the Shanna Boito missing persons case, which maybe I should talk about that on our show, because I haven't, and I've invested nearly 3 years of my life into looking into it. So I'll be telling a story about that up there.
Yeah, and if this comes out after that, I would just remind people that Jodie is generally a mover and shaker in Eau Claire, and is just in the zeitgeist of Eau Claire art culture.
Which is that why you're marrying me?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I need the connections. Yeah.
I'm happy I can help you. Bye for now.
Bye.